G'day, Chris here. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. We're just going into our second state of lockdown. We'll be locked in for another 6 weeks approximately, not able to go climbing outside or to the climbing gym, so they're all locked up again. When this happened the first time, I decided it was time to build a climbing wall. I converted an old chin-up bar area I had in the backyard, put up a big sheet of ply. It's about 3.2 metres high. I added a bit to the bottom as a bit of a kickboard. That worked really well. It's just over vertical, worked quite nicely, and then I decided it was time to make it a bit more interesting. I filled in behind it underneath the tree, and I've ended up with quite a nice bouldering cave. To try keep the money down, I thought I'd attempt to make my own holds, and that's gone pretty well. I've been using wood, used various substances. If you're looking at getting into it, don't spend a fortune to start up, I reckon. Have a go. You might not find a user that much, and if you go spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on holds, you may not get your money back. So what I suggest is just using the wood you've got around. We had a tree fall over in the front yard. I dropped a few branches. Nice piece of gum. I've stripped the bark off. As you can see, it's got a really nice grain to it. It's pretty dense. This stuff I've been slicing off in pieces. You slice a piece, I can drill and bolt through the top for a T-nut, a T-bolt, and that works really well. Or you can put a couple of holes and use it as a screw-in. I've also used these, sliced them longer, ended up with some really nice big holes. Type of thing you end up with. So you got a nice hole on the top there, flat spot on the bottom. You can pinch it, you can hold it, you can have it as a sloper. When you're making the holds, have a think about what you can use them for and how many different ways you can use the one hold. Don't just make it one type, one way. Make it so anything you use can be used from multiple directions and multiple ways. Find it works much, much better. Had a bit of a go with the hole cutter. Quite a nice shape on that one. So it works as a foothold or handhold, side pull, whatever you like from it. That was cut from a piece, really nice. The grain's beautiful in this wood too. If nothing else, it's a bit of fun. Another one where I cut it out. Why not use the rest of it? So the rest of the hold becomes quite a nice hold. Interesting one. Sort of like a finger pocket. Or a lay off the sides, works really well. Turn around the other way, that's a disgusting sloper. From a tree we had cut down in the backyard. Beautiful grain and not gnarly and lumpy, and as you can see I've created a nice spot that we can use as a really good sort of juggy hold. Flat bottom there. If you don't want to put the T-nut hole, you just put a couple of more in to be able to use it with some straight screws. How to play with cypress pine? You can say I don't love it. It is a softwood, and as such, not really great. Very similar with Oregon. Oregon pickets we had sitting around at home that we replaced a while ago, that some of them started to go rotten. Really wide grain, really not tough. You stand on the edge, it breaks away, you tend to overscrew it, it snaps. Really hard to shape because it doesn't hold together really well. And the cypress, well, you can shape it beautifully, really easy, but tricky to use. When I've used the offcuts from some of these, if you try to use them as just straight screw-ins, 9 times out of 10 you'll end up breaking them. If you do decide to use it, make sure you get pieces so you can screw across the grain. If it ends up looking so you're going with the grain, you'll just end up with it splitting straight away. At least you got a bit more of a chance with these. What I have found works, join a couple together, glue them and bolt them. If you use a bolt through it, it tends to hold a lot better. Talking of bolts, most people go for the standard. These are M10 with a hex head. Went to the local spot, had a look, and I got some button heads with a slightly smaller, that's a 6mm Allen key. 6mm Allen key fits in the drill quite nicely. These have a much bigger gripping area, and I've found using the hard eucalypt red gum, I don't actually need to use a washer. They grip quite well without it. It doesn't pull in through the wood. It's got enough head area that you can get away with it. So I could drill a smaller hole, but I have been putting a washer through some of them anyway, just to be on the safe side. You need about a 20mm washer, so you're going to need to drill a 19 or 20mm hole that it drops down into. What have I been using? Couple of files. These work beautifully. The nice aggressive rat tail file and a fairly aggressive half moon file. Then a flat file to finish off. Have been using a few different wheels. These work. Boy, do they throw out some dust. Make sure you wear a mask when you're using these ones, and it's probably not a bad idea to wear a pair of goggles too. Been using one of these critters. It's a drill guide for doing doweling. I find it works really well for the smaller holes. Once you flatten it out, I put the guide on top, drill my hole. I know I've got a nice square hole. Once I've got that hole through, I then drill out the larger piece, and then I drill the bolt hole after that. I'll show you an example in a minute. Besides that, 11mm drill to finish off so the bolt goes through. It's either 10 or 11. If you want, you can have a couple of chisels, not that you need them too much, but if you want to dig in and make some smaller holes, chisels work well. The old tenon saw, really good, and a vise of course to hold it. Be warned, it makes a hell of a mess. You end up with stuff and dirt and dust absolutely everywhere. I have taken out bucket loads of sawdust already. My other tool of choice is the old electric plane. It's hit the vise a couple of times. I shouldn't really say that. So the edges aren't the sharpest, but works brilliantly for doing the rough shaping. And a drill. I've gone for a nice little cordless one, but if you want to go for a corded drill, it doesn't really matter. If you're really keen, a belt sander to finish it off a bit, but I do find it tends to leave them fairly overly smooth. The files tend to leave a bit more texture on it, and a bit more texture always works much better if you wanted to grip for later. Alright, that's it for this one, and I'll show you how to make a hole in the next one.